Hello, welcome back to Where Bluebirds Walk. We are reviewing the Sunderland game. Didn't start entirely well, but it's too early to panic, isn't it? Welcome back to Where Bluebirds Walk. It's James and Jamie are with us. James, we'll come to you first. How was that for you?
Disappointing, to be honest. I thought we started quite well in the first 10 minutes. We were pressing quite high and aggressive, and it looked like we were going to put in a decent performance. But as soon as Sunderland got their first goal, we sort of revert back to the old ways of, being a bit slow with the ball and letting Sunderland sort of dictate their play. And it was a bit disappointing after the first 10 minutes.
Thanks, James. Jamie, you were there as well. I suppose the fact that you've signed some good players and they're going to take some time to gel, and obviously especially around the midfield. Did it hurt a bit to see that it was kind of an extension of last year, where the play is slow, as James has said? What for you as a...
Yeah, it did really hurt. James hit the nail on the head there. For first 10, 12 minutes, we were pressing high. We were doing everything that Errol Bullitt had said he really wanted to do this season. And then when the goal went in, we reverted to what I call sort for us, is back to last year's mentality. It was like, well, what do we do? And it was, from a Sunderland perspective, a really, really well-worked goal. It's a set piece. But if you look at it and dissect it from a Cardiff defensive perspective, it's really poor. We played some nice stuff, playing it left and right and sort of backwards, but there's no penetration. And of course, yes, Willock looked bright, which is great, but we are crying out for the likes of the new signings, as you mentioned, to come in and give us some much needed flair, because it felt like it was quite slow at times, I wanted to say negative, but I'd say it was very repetitive in the patterns of play.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. No need to panic yet, is there, though, James? I mean, did you see enough in there to prove to all these people they're putting Cardiff relegated? And I mean, I am sick to death of, you must be as well, of every single pundit putting Cardiff. I mean, I've seen you 22nd, I've seen you bottom in one prediction. Did you see enough in that game against Sunderland that suggests actually you're going to be all right?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the first 10, 12 minutes were quite decent. Obviously, we reverted back to the old ways, but we still got new players to come into the system. Obviously, Robertson, that we've signed from Man City, looks a decent player. Obviously, El Ghazi, when he gets up to fitness, I think those are the two type of players that we would have needed in a game like yesterday to potentially get something out of that game. Because, I think the one problem with us at the moment, and it's been a constant problem, is the off-the-ball movement with the players. When we got the ball, where there's just not enough off-the-ball movement, and that's what's sort of slowing our play down.
Okay. Jamie, how did the new boys do? We didn't get to see, obviously, your Man City guy for too long, but what about the rest of them?
I thought starting at the back, Callum Chambers, I think he was solid. He was what you expect with him. Done well on the ball. Willock looked sharp. He looked quite bright. But it seems to be he didn't necessarily take on his man out wide, because obviously our Errol Bullitt tactic is the inverted wingers and so on. And I think yesterday we just wanted him to go a bit more direct, because when he did in the first 10 minutes, he was causing their right back a lot of problems.
The next two fixtures for you, for both, are pretty horrendous. Burnley away, which is a ground which you haven't won at since 1986. And then, of course, need to remind you of the next game after that, Swansea away. So there's going to have to be some hard graft on the training field this week, isn't there, to get this, especially the midfield, sorted out. James, what would you be doing in training this week?
sort of looking at sort of how quick we move the ball. I think that's why Omar Rizal has sort of been brought in to sort of speed up the play. Obviously, he's been there since the pre-season now, so it's going to take time for everything to get into place. But I think it's good when you see how we play in matches like this, because then you can look at the stuff like yesterday and see where we need to sort of improve, and sort of, like I say, the off the ball movement just needs to be a lot quicker, because we're just sort of not moving it quick enough and letting the other team sort of set up in a back four, and there's just no movement there.
Okay. All right, no reason to panic. Yes, next Saturday, a trip to Burnley, which is probably the last fixture you could have done with right now. Let's bring on our Burnley fan and have a chat about Burnley versus Cardiff next weekend in the EFL. Delighted that Mike Culshaw joins us from Claret's Walk. Good evening, Mike. Welcome to.
Good evening.
Welcome to our Bluebirds Walk.
I'm keeping my face very concerned for you. I'm doing my best not to gloat or smile.
Yes, we haven't seen Burnley yet because we are recording this before. Obviously, you've played Luton, so it's a little bit of an unknown, but
it is.
I mean,
it's going to be one of it's going to be one of those things. You got. I feel a bit for Cardiff. They did play well yesterday, and as far as I'm concerned, although it was a 2-0, Sunderland's a good litmus test of what you can expect from Burnley. I think we haven't seen them either. We've only seen one pre-season game, and that's not really much to go off. But it's our first home game, which adds the pressure immensely, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but your record. I mean, I guess you will say it speaks for nothing, but your record against Cardiff at home is absolutely stunning. What is it about? Do you think just how one team can come to Turf Moor and every year crumble? You did a double over in the Premier League.
To be fair, as daft as it sounds, Cardiff to me growing up, when we went to Cardiff, was always the team that we struggled against. Always. At Turf Moor, it's one of those things. I think with football, we heavily steeped in tradition, or not tradition. It's just what's the word? Where you walk under ladders and stuff. What's the word? Trying to think of it. Superstition. Superstition. Yeah. And I think once a superstition beds under your nails, it's hard to get out. If you're thinking, oh well, we never do well there. If you're going in with that mentality, you're not going to do well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's get some score predictions from you then. Jamie, first of all, do we change the starting 11 here or not?
I think we have to. If any of our new boys in terms of Al Ghazi can play, he'd be one of the first people out wide. We played with Ollie Tanner for about 60 minutes yesterday. He's, for me, in my opinion, he's not a starting Championship winger. So that'd be the straight one. And if Robertson is fit and is ready to go, he was at Man City for a reason. We need, like James said, a bit more mobility in the centre of the park, because Burnley have got some great players that will pass and move and pass and move. So we need that bit of mobility, extra mobility in the middle of the park. So they're the first two changes I'd make.
Okay. All right, let's go to score predictions. Mike, you can go first as you're at home.
I'm going to go conservative. I think 16-0. No, I'm joking. 1-0. I think it's going to be a 1-0 win.
Okay. James, the Cardiff fans will be hoping Scott Parker, as many have said, is the weak link in this. I think
everyone in the league is right now, to be fair.
Go on, James. Have your bash at this.
I'd be happy with a 1-1 draw.
Right. Okay. You'd bite your hand off for a 1-1 draw, wouldn't you? Right. Cheers, Mike, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good luck to you, fella. All right. We'll catch up on the Burnley View later. Cheers, fella. That time for rate my take. Okay, Barry Griffiths says, we played some good football, unlucky at times. It's still the first game of the season. Let's not get carried away. New players in and still trying to find their feet. Give it a month or two, then we can start slating the team. time people needed to calm down a bit. Jamie, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think football is a brilliant sport because we are emotionally invested. I, for one, at times yesterday, when you're 1-0 down, you're thinking, "Come on, you want to see a bit more." You take that emotion away and you look at the game in a whole and think, "Do you know what? We'd all love to have a Jack Clark, a Joe Bellingham in the team." But overall, I think we played well in patches, but we just need to sort out the top end of the pitch. And I think when that comes with the likes of Al Ghazi and hopefully more players that we do sign, I think we'll be a lot better. So yeah, I do agree with Barry's sentiment there. I mean, again, I mean, football's divide of opinion. That's why we love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do agree with it.
All right. Next week, we're going to be talking about central defenders. This one talks about, obviously, the midfield. James, Ralls, Sipsis and Ramsey as a midfield doesn't work. No one carries the ball. We need Robertson in there straight away. We'll come on to the other part of that in a second. What about that comment about your midfield? Agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so. Sort of Siopis and Ralls are sort of more of a defensive-minded midfielder when playing at home, and then obviously Ramsey is the ball carrier. I think that we do need to be a bit more positive when playing at home. And yeah, I think that someone like Robertson is going to carry the ball forwards. Yeah, we do need to sort of change the midfield and be a bit more positive.
Okay. We're starting now to review the Cardiff squad week by week. This week we're looking at goalkeepers. Thank you for 11 versus 11 for the graphics you can see on the screen. So Horvath distribution has been criticised a lot on Twitter, but when you look at your first choice goalkeeper and your second and third, Jamie, are you happy with where we're at in terms of goalkeepers? Obviously, Matthew Turner obviously probably won't get too many games this season, but where do you rate where you're at with goalkeepers?
I think it's a healthy competition. Jack Ornwick's been, he's been quite reliable, to be fair. But when we signed Ethan Horvath, I think we all knew that he wouldn't be coming in from Nottingham Forest being a number 2. Distribution, as it was mentioned in the tweet yesterday, I was watching him in the warm-up, and a lot of the work was putting the ball on his favoured right-hand side and making him kick it with his left. And I think at times yesterday, I was listening to the Sunderland, so a few Sunderland fans. I think both keepers struggled with their distribution yesterday. I think both kicks were, maybe it was the high press from the teams, but they both struggled to hit one of their players. Horvath is a strong, shot stopper. To be fair to him, he made a cracking save with his feet in the second half when it was 1-0. And Jack Ornwick is a more than able replacement.
Thank you. James, would you agree with all that?
Yeah, I think obviously yesterday the distribution from Horvath was quite poor. There was a few kicks that he sort of sent long, and they was just going straight to a Sunderland player. They were in.
Oh, we've lost him. I think we got the gist of that, James. distribution poor. Okay, no worries. Jamie, finish off then, just before we go. Then Carabao Cup is back this week. Bristol Rovers at home for Cardiff. Not too bothered about this one, are we?
We all love a glamour of a cup tie. We all love a cup run. Unfortunately for us, in the last few years, we've had some less attractive ties. It's a time for people, I think, coming back from injuries, people who need minutes. Errol Bullitt mentioned in his press conference after the game that'll be the type of players. Bristol Rovers are, they won yesterday. They're not going to be an easy thing. We saw that pre-season. We beat them 2-0, so we've had a taste of what they're like. But again, I think they're bringing around 1,300 fans. It'll be a good atmosphere from their perspective as well. So I'm not overly bothered if we don't go in the cup, if I'm honest. But hey, you want to win every game, don't you?
Absolutely. Right. Thank you for joining us then this week. Next week, we'll be reviewing the central defensive partnership for Cardiff. And obviously, we'll be reviewing the Sheffield Wednesday game. And we're also going to be having a Swansea fan here to discuss the big South Wales derby, which we'll be previewing next week. Can't wait. I'm not a fan of derbies too early in the season. But I don't know about you, Jamie, but I'd prefer there to be at least 10, 12 games gone before we get the meaty games. But yeah, it'll still be a good one, won't it?
it will be very tasty, and I mean it's an interesting one for us because it's a Sunday at 3 o'clock, thanks to Sky Sports. So again, early on in the season could go one or two ways. We haven't had the best record away in Swansea for many years. Maybe the sort of rustiness for them this season might help us. Who knows? But hopefully our team actually turn up in Swansea for once.
Okay. Right. Oh, James is back. Thank you, James. Sorry we lost you there for a minute. Okay. I know you love talking about Swansea, so we'll do that with you next week. All right.
Yeah.
Cheers, Jamie. Cheers, James, and thank you all for watching. Appreciate it. See you next week.